how you explain such a success for this 2011 vintage?
I think it's because we respect what nature has given us, i.e. It was a dry year, and the wines suffered from this drought that we had throughout the summer. Usually we're complaining we have too much rain. This year we didn't have enough, and the vegetation came to a halt, and the grapes didn't mature properly. They were small grapes, but delicious. And it doesn't mean it's not a good vintage, but it's not a vintage that's going to be kept for 30 or 40 years. But what does that matter? It's a very useful year to drink while you're waiting for the greater years like 2009 and 2010, waiting for them to mature. So it's very useful to have an intermediary vintage. And I'm very fond of them. It's a style of wine I like very much. Elegance, finesse, more important than body or blockbuster, which is a term I hate, but everything to make it a good vintage. It just lacked that little touch of when the vegetation came to an end in August, beginning of September. You know what I mean? I've been asked to forecast what's going to happen in the campaign for the En Primeur sales, and I said it's a bit like forecasting the weather, except it's even more difficult to forecast the sales than it is to forecast the weather. So I don't know what's going to happen. I hope the prices will come down reasonably, because if they don't, what happens is that the prices either remain static, which is too high, and people feel obliged to buy, and then a few years later the prices tumble. In some vintages, like 2007 for example, prices suddenly collapsed and came down by as much as 30%. That's very unhealthy for the market.
So, do you have an idea of how much you will sell your wine this vintage, or not yet?
Honestly, I don't know yet. Unfortunately, I mean, it's a sad thing to say, and I try to avoid it. I try to avoid being influenced by my neighbours, and I attempt to foresee what the ultimate consumer is prepared to pay and forget what's going to happen in the meantime. But to a certain extent, I think I may have suffered as a result of that. My prices have been reasonable, while other chateaux have taken advantage because they sell higher than their neighbour. That's the great thing they want. They forget about the consumer. They only want to know what the neighbour is charging for his wine. And I think that's a big mistake. The result is that Le Ville Barton is found on the market quite a lot cheaper than our neighbours like Porphyry, and certainly a lot cheaper than Lascaz. And yet I don't think the difference in quality is the same as the difference in price.